when one goes for any battle, you must go with a positive mental attitude. And the positive mental attitude is the display of victory and the display of confidence in whatever you are doing. I have been in the National Assembly now for 6 years, and I have not seen a single government bill, in the floor of the House defeated, except at some point when Amos Munya was the majority leader, and he had not really mobilized very well. He had not learned how members reason and think. What you are seeing out there is politics of populism. I have engaged members of from the minority side. I have engaged members from the majority side. And I must tell you today, and mark it, half of the members of the minority side support the finance bill. But because of, being politically correct, appearing to be politically correct, and by the fact that they are close to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, they want to appear like they are supporting him in public, but deep down them, because the question is gonna be in affirmative, by acclamation in chambers, they'll say I have it, and that is the truth. The deceit that you see in our politics is very funny. I had a meeting with about 100 members from the majority side in phases. I met 40, another 40, and then 20. And tomorrow I'm also meeting about 50 members of parliament from the majority side. And they are convinced that the bill is the right thing to do for this country, and they'll support it. So already I'm starting with a number of about 150. Because winning in the National Assembly is about strategy. What numbers do you have? You don't just say, I'll oppose. You have not heard the minority whip, show he's not displayed activeness in terms of opposing the bill. And yet he's supposed to whip his members to oppose it. You haven't seen it, because he already knows. In fact, don't be surprised that he may not even attend the sitting, because that is part of our strategy, to make sure that members are rightly whipped. So we've met 150 members. I am starting with 150. And then by close of business next, when the bill will be tabled, because we have a timeline that by 30th of June, we must have sorted this whole thing. There is a budget here, but you must display where this money will come from. The budget is going to be read, but you must display where the finance bill is a very unique thing. That in the event you affect a certain angle of revenue collection, then the whole thing is messed. We'll again restart. Yet we have a timeline of 30 days from 1st June. And that is why we say we have no option, because there's a budget to pass. I mean, Kenyans, even, the civil servant wants salary. How do you want salary without budget being passed? And the budget can't just go through without the finance bill. So our strategy is to mobilize without really intimidation and blackmail and anything. We have convinced 150 members. I am still in the process of convincing an extra 50 by tomorrow. By next day after tomorrow. That will be 200. And then by close of this week, I'll have convinced about 300 members.
How many do you want?
I just
pass the bill.
Simple majority. For you to pass the bill, you need simple majority, because voting is not on either by it's not on individual casting like it's usually done in the. It's not out of counting. In any case, if there are divisions, then now at that point we'll now vote digitally. But as it is by acclamation, and the ayes have it and such.
Do you see them voting that division?
You can only force division if the sound on one side is higher than the other. It appears like there is no difference in terms of the tone of the tone of variation is similar.
Tumekuwa kuna inaendelea na maoni yametolewa na wengi. Unahisi kwamba labda mswada huu unafaa ufanyiwe marekebisho kidogo, ama ulivyokuja ndivyo utapitishwa?
Mswada huu umefanywa marekebisho. Vile watu wameendelea kutoa maoni yao, mswada huu unaendelea kufanywa marekebisho. Kwa mfano, watu walileta lawama juu ya TikTok na inaitwa namna gani?
Influencers.
Can you speak just in English?
Let's do English.
Kwa wengi wale wanyoko mashinani.
Hapana, just stick to English. So influencers have complained. Mungefungua hizi dirisha. Si tutaungua hapa. Ama mlango.
Karibu tumalize.
Influencers have complained. They've raised the issue with the president. I have seen the president advise the finance committee. He's also making suggestions to the finance committee that maybe we have a review on the revenue collection by the influencers. But that will only be postponement. Eventually it will come. The only thing we'll agree, we'll make it gradual. That they pay possibly a certain percentage today, let's say 6% or 5%. And then gradually we grow it up to 15% eventually. But we have to prepare them. And I agree with the president and the committee that the ambush on 15% may affect people's goals, as it were. But that has been reviewed. But the percentage will be there, though less. It will only grow gradually.
Should the same not happen to the other taxes? You've read about the private school associations, everybody, every employer, because as much as the employees are crying, even employers...
What we are looking at, let me tell you, about the levy and such, and the employers feel that they'll retrench and cut down the overheads and such like that. It is part of the discussion. There is a possibility of coming up with a moratorium structure of settlement. That it is not really, it can't be a complete ambush. That if you have deducted an employee the percentage of 3% and you're not able to pay your part, we are already crafting a formula that will enable the employer, and this is, I speak with authority, that will enable the employer negotiate on the moratorium they need to repay this amount, so that you plan yourself, you plan your finances, because there are members, the employers who have loans and such. But if we create a moratorium, say over 1 year, say of 6 months, one who has loans to settle or to service will have quality time to settle. And such are discussions that we need to have. But as it is, this thing is not going to wait. And that is what we are saying. It's not that we are rushing. Far from it. We are not rushing. What we are saying is this. We have a budget to service. But we do not know where to get the money from. And it is through the finance bill that we'll be able to collect revenue. And what we are saying also is that we have to make a choice. There are projects that were started by the previous regime that have stalled across the country. Now, do we ignore them? Because Kenyans will also suffer. Do we ignore electricity connectivity? Do we ignore the road network that is also a means of transport? Do we ignore schools, yet we've got JSS that need school infrastructure and such? We either ignore or borrow more, and we have a ceiling that we are almost exceeding, and that is why we are saying we must pass the finance bill. In any case, by the way, we've reduced taxes, and it's important for us to know that some sections of revenue collection that were so common have been reduced. There is nothing new that has been introduced in this whole finance bill, other than the imposition of taxes on importation of furniture, on importation of fish, so that we are able to promote our local manufacturers and our local business people. That is the only new tax that has been introduced. The housing finance, the finance levy is not a tax. It's one saving. It's only that it's mandatory. It's mandatory because you live because I also live. The don't care attitude that Kenyans have is not so good. When you go to the history of NSSF and you go to the history of NHIF, it was fought even then. But today, I pay NHIF, yet I've not visited the hospital in the past, my whole life. Somebody is using my money, the contribution, to go to the hospital. And that is what we are saying even in the housing. You pay some amount of money, which is refundable at a certain period of time. We use that money to build the houses. And then the poor people will acquire the houses, and it's such simple.
Leader, where is the place of parliamentary independence? From what the president said yesterday, it appeared as if he was issuing threats to members that you have to vote a certain way.
No. That is not what the president said, and it's important for me to clarify. The president said, and I think on this we really must pick it up. What the president said, he said that he wants to see the members of parliament that do not want Kenya to progress. He did not say that he wants to see the members of parliament
Taxing
that
progression.
because he said is the country, Kenyans need jobs, and such jobs will come through such things, industrial issues and building houses and such, and this bill provides for that. And that is why he's saying, I want to see which Kenyans, which members of parliament will oppose this. And I mean, like any other Kenya, like you who wants to see members of parliament that will pass it for your own reason, he also wants to see members that will oppose it for his own reasons. I also want to see the members of parliament that will oppose it, especially from Kenya Kwanza.
Why is he pushing for an open vote? Isn't it a threat to
Intimidation.
to intimidate the MPs to see who will stand up to?
That if you don't vote,
You see, we need to be very careful not to be shifting goalposts. The point of open voting was first fronted by our opponents and the minority side, and they said, Kenyans, be glued on your TVs and see the members of parliament that will vote in favor of this bill. And the president just agreed with them. They said you be glued on TV to see whether people will support. Were they threatening members of parliament and trying to, blackmail them to vote against? No. The president said, fine. I also want to see those who will oppose it, because they will have opposed the interest of the executive to create jobs for the young people. It is not blackmail. The president has no role in the National Assembly.
Why we are reading intimidation, Mheshimiwa, is because the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said those MPs who will oppose the finance bill should not ask for development.
Roads, specifically roads.
And it should be very clear. What the executive is saying, or what the president is saying and the deputy president, is that we only do roads through revenue collection. We do government projects. We do projects, national projects, through collection. We build schools out of what we collect. So the deputy president and the president are saying, if you are saying we kill the finance bill, how then do you ask for a road, yet we will not have collected that money sufficient enough to do your road? And then he said, if you oppose it, then don't go to the offices to ask for the road. And I think it's a very fair statement, because when you go to those offices, you must explain to government where you want us to get money from. And it's very clear. You oppose it,
You lose roads.
you don't really lose roads. But in terms of order of priority,
you will mark
get.
it
in terms of order of priority,
in terms of shareholding.
So you agree, Mheshimiwa, who in the opposition? You said you have exactly. If you just mention names, who is in the opposition has agreed to support you, please.
I will not mention names because I need to protect my colleagues. But I have to tell you, although if I can only mention one,
Yes, please.
if you want.
Yes.
For example, Esther Pasari supports this bill entirely. And if you get her, you can ask her. She supports this bill because it benefits her people. She has a challenge of housing in Nairobi. There is no way she's going to allow people to suffer in Mkuru, Ruben and Jenga just because the party leaders told her not to vote. So, and she's just one among several. I have received 50, and it is true, factual. I have 50 members of the minority side supporting this particular finance bill. In fact, 50. And the second one is an open secret. If you want me to give you two.
Yeah.
Daniel Manduku. He is a member of ODM, Nyaribari Masaba. He supports this thing entirely. In fact, when you live here, please engage him. He'll explain to you how housing. He's an expert in the housing matters. A very good expert. He's an architect. Well-learned guy, doctor, and such. And he is in support of the finance bill entirely. Those are two. So if you want, I'll give you 50. And by the way, have you seen, and I've even asked you a question, have you seen the minority whip raise an issue about the finance bill? You haven't.
So he supports.
No, I've not said. That shows that you are.
Mheshimiwa, I have one question. By calling for an open vote, is there a feeling within Kenya Kwanza that some members are not reading from the same script? That there are some members who are planning to shoot down the bill? Is that what is...
That is not true. There is no such a feeling by the Kenya Kwanza. In fact, in all the caucuses that we are a very organized coalition. In all the caucuses that I've had, the entire weekend we've held caucuses. In Mombasa, in Nairobi, several caucuses. I simply raised questions and raised the issue with my colleagues and asked them, where do you want us to adjust the finance bill? very little was proposed. You'll be surprised in that very day the support this bill will publicly receive. And by the way, Kenyans are also jumping the gun. The process of this bill is far-fetched. It is not, and it's not something that is, it's not an instant coffee. It starts from the tabling. Once it's tabled, and that means introduction, it will be introduced in the floor of the House. Members will have commentaries to make in the very floor of the House. Then it will go to the next stage. When it gets to the next stage, which is second reading, it will go to the committee of the whole House. In the committee of the whole House, it is at that point that members will have an opportunity to make amendments. Genuine members will appear in the committee of the whole House to propose amendments on the bill in the committee of the whole House. And you know what usually happens in the committee of the whole House? Such several members that you see speaking publicly will be green. They do not even know anything to do with taxation and such and revenue and all those kind of percentages. So after the committee of the whole House, it will then go to the third reading. So we are far. It is not like once we open the House, tomorrow, the bill will be tabled, vote yes or vote no. It's really a process. And when people like Okiya Mutata go to court, I mean, it's total premature. You go to court to challenge what? A bill? A bill that has not even been tabled in the floor of the House? A bill that can be amended at the committee stage? So what are you really telling court? That now I don't want this bill to go to the committee of the whole House that will be editing that bill. And that is why I told you many of these things will be adjusted at the committee of the whole House.
So there's a chance of amendments. In other words.
A high chance of amendment. And that is why we are telling Kenyans, stop jumping the gun. We will amend so many things in the committee of the whole House. We will amend so many. Maybe even the title will be amended.
All right. Thank you so much.
Mheshimiwa, lakini tukue wapongwana kidogo hapa kwa sababu unasema serikali inahitaji hela kwa wingi sana kutoka kwa ushuru kufanya miradi ya
Sisi ni wangwana.
maendeleo. Lakini sasa tuna the same government is wasting a lot of money doing
good
things like employing over 50 CSs who are doing absolutely nothing.
I do not want to swim in sub judice matters because that matter is already in court, especially the CASS. But the collection, the CASS, it's called what? CASS remuneration is not commensurate to, it's not so huge. You really don't. It's not something that you need to sweat over. But be that as it may, the matter is in court. However, let me tell you, what we should be focusing as members of parliament in our oversight role is to curb corruption. The main challenge is the leakage in the executive. It doesn't really make sense that you have even CSS moving around with about 5 cars or 10 cars. Such are the things that we need now to, immediately we pass this, such are the things that we want to discuss. That one leaves this country to the UK as a CS in the executive, moves around with about 15 team members, one to write speech, one to carry the bag, one to do, for what? Those are the leakages that you want to curb in this whole thing. But